How many times have you said that you're so busy and you're working so many hours to provide for your family, and that at the same time you're not spending any time with your family because you're working so many hours and you're so busy? And a lot of people then find themselves in this position where their kids have gotten older and they've grown up and they no longer want to spend time with their parents. And no matter how hard you worked and how well you provided for them financially when they were younger, you can't get that time back. I've got 3 young kids, and my wife Taryn and I found ourselves in this position several years ago. And we realized we didn't want to work till we were 65 and never be around while our kids were growing up and miss out on all the important things in that small window when our kids are younger. And so we realized we were going to have to do something different, something unconventional that most people don't do. And we found that we can own properties similar to the one I'm sitting in. This is a 3-unit short-term rental that kicks off several $1,000s a month. And properties like this can basically replace our W-2 job, and we can live off the income from this by setting up systems to manage this property without taking a ton of our time. We now teach this strategy to others, and my student Michelle Norman is a perfect example of someone else who went through this similar process. You know, she and her husband Joe wanted to create more capacity in their lives. They wanted to be able to spend more time with their kids. And so they decided to start working with me and using these short-term rentals as the avenue to get there. And she came on my podcast a while back and she talked through her story. They live in Northern California where they couldn't touch any properties that would cash flow anywhere around them. And so we worked together to help them buy properties all the way across the country in 3 states that they've never visited, but they were able to follow the model, purchase these high cash flowing, lower cost multi-unit properties. And within a year, she had purchased 9 separate units and created over $12,000 of cash flow, and was able to whittle down the time that she worked to 4 hours a day between her realty business as a full-time realtor in California and then also on the short-term rentals. And it gave her the ability to spend a lot more time with her family. So in this video, I'm going to walk you through how you can do something similar to what Michelle and I have done. And it really hinges on 3 main things. Number 1, it's picking the right deal. Number 2, setting up the right systems. And then number 3, doing the thing that most people won't do, and that's getting super intentional around the tasks that you will no longer do. Real quick, before we get into picking the right deal, if this sounds like something you want to work with me personally on, then you can set up a call with me to talk about my first vacation rental investment blueprint program, which is a program where I walk you through the process very step by step, and it's very hands-on. I work with you personally through this step-by-step process. So you can set up a call with me at livingoffrentals.com/call. Again, that's livingoffrentals.com/call, and we can talk about your goals and see if the program's a good fit. So the first thing that pulling off financial freedom hinges on is selecting the right deal. So what most people do when they realize that, okay, rental properties can be a path to get to financial freedom, they go out and they start buying the traditional long-term rental properties. And I'm not against long-term rentals. I think they could actually be better investments than the typical mutual fund out there. But a great long-term rental typically produces $300-400 per door for a really good one. So if you think about how long it's going to take to replace your W-2 salary, it's probably going to be a lot of doors, it's going to be a lot of work, and it's going to require a lot of time to get there. And so instead, what we focus on is these super high cash flowing, typically multi-unit properties that we can use as short-term rentals just outside of large cities. Because typically just outside of large cities, the nightly rate is still pretty high, but yet the price point is pretty low. So the cash flow is much higher than anything you can get with long-term rentals.
Hey, real quick, the sponsor for today's video is the #1 banking platform built specifically for rental property investors. I am constantly looking for the best tools to manage my properties and my finances, and in my opinion, Baselane has built the ultimate all-in-one solution. Baselane allows you to set up unlimited virtual bank accounts and debit cards for better visibility in your cash flow and finances, and you can also do other things like sign leases with tenants, collect rent, keep track of your books, and review your analytics, and finally, it's all in one place. Plus, they have the industry-leading annual percentage yield, which is just a fancy way of saying you make a lot more money on the money that you have deposited in your Baselane bank accounts. So I personally use the platform along with over 40,000 other real estate investors. So you can use the link that just popped up, and it's also in the video description below, and open as many business bank accounts as you want, and it's all for free. The link is baselane.com/Kirby, which is my first name. That's BASELANE.com/KIRBY.
And the great thing about these types of properties is that they're lower cost and they're easy to finance. There's DSCR Lenders. You can Google that. I'll also put the name of a couple that we work with in the comments, but DSCR Lenders love to loan on these types of properties, and they will give you 80% of the purchase price for these properties. And since they're lower cost, the other 20% down payment is pretty minimal in a lot of cases. Like if you're buying a $100,000, $200,000 property, then that's a pretty small amount. And a lot of times you can work with private lenders to cover the 20% down payment as well, so that you're coming out of pocket very, very minimally. You can go to airdna.co and you can look up any town for free on this data analytics website, and it will tell you how many short-term rentals there are in that town, what the average nightly rate is, and what the average occupancy is. And so you can start to calculate what the income potential is for a property like this, where you've got 3 units worth of income coming in compared to the purchase price in that town. The second component that getting to financial freedom hinges on is setting up a really good system. You no longer have the luxury of dabbling if you want to get to financial freedom. There's nobody I know who's made it to financial freedom who's a dabbler and just tries a little bit of this, a little bit of that. What they've done is they've figured out the method that they want to use to get there, because there's a lot of different methods that could get you there. And then they've set up a system around that method to make it a repeatable process that they can do over and over again. And like I said, there's a lot of different ways to get there, but what I found is with this low cost, high cash flowing short-term rental method, it's just a really efficient, really impactful way to make progress toward financial freedom. So what do I mean by having a system for everything? What you need to do is sit down and look at every main component of the process of completing a full deal, and then have a process, a step-by-step process, and then checklists for each of those components. So it might be how to find deals, how do I finance deals, how do I set up deals, and then how do I manage deals going forward. And I'm sitting in this property because I just met with a brand new cleaner. So we have a system where our team screens new cleaners, and then as a final step, I walk through a fully cleaned and set up property to show them what sort of the ideal looks like. And this new cleaner was blown away at our systems compared to other Airbnbs, where it's kind of fly by night and they just kind of make it up as they go along. So we have an app called Turno where it allows us to have our cleaners pick the properties that they prefer, so they get first dibs on that property. If they decline, it opens up to other cleaners. They can select that cleaning job. We can put notes in there for that job. We can see when they start the job. We can see when they finish the job. It automatically pays them once they're done. They have to upload pictures so that we can monitor the quality control of their cleaning. We also have checklists for exactly how we want everything done, down to the wording in the welcome note. We have branding on our bottle of wine. We have very specific standards for everything in the property, so that new cleaners don't come in and they guess and make it up as they go along, and then we have a different standard each time. It's the exact same standard, and it's easy for them to follow because they understand the expectations. It's not changing. The goalpost isn't always changing on them. So that's what I mean by having a great system around each component of the process. And the final component that financial freedom hinges on, and this is something that I have struggled with. I still struggle with it, but I've seen how important it is. And that is getting really intentional and really specific around the things I will no longer do list. And if you're watching this, you're probably somebody who's ambitious and you're probably hardworking, and it's difficult for you to look at any component of your business that you know that you could do. You're very capable of doing it, and it will probably save you, quote unquote, save you money by doing that component yourself. I think we all struggle with this as business owners. The problem is that there's no shortage of things that you can do. I think it's Parkinson's law that says that work will always expand to fill the time allowed. So if the intent is to condense the time that you're working so that you have more time with your family, then you have to get super specific on all the things that only you can do, and then you only do those things, and you don't allow all the other things that you could do that are so tempting to be sucked into. You don't allow yourself to be sucked into those things. So for example, with our business, when we first started doing this back in 2017, I thought we needed to buy properties close by so that I could be at the property and do all these things myself. And for the first year, I was the guy going over there. When a guest couldn't figure out the digital lock and get in, I was the one that drove over there to help them figure that out for Wi-Fi issues, for maintenance issues. And I realized after a year of doing this that I was my own worst enemy, that I didn't need to be the one doing this. And so I consciously started working on this. And I knew that I needed to treat my properties as if they're on the other side of the world and that I can't get to them, or the other side of the country and I can't get to them. And so that's what we did. And so we set up systems around how we would manage the property if we didn't have access to it ourselves. And miraculously, the operations improved tremendously because I was no longer the bottleneck. I could put people in place who are much better at those components than me. So now here's how our team works. We have 2 people or 2 roles that handle everything boots on the ground. So anything that could come up, whether it's routine cleanings and maintenance or it's emergency things, they're all defined and they're assigned to one of these 2 people. And that is a handyman or a utility type person and a cleaner. And we have redundancy in each role. We don't just rely on one person, but they're 2 key roles that handle everything boots on the ground. So now there's properties that I haven't visited in over a year. I know it's ironic because I'm sitting in a property and I'll still come by properties and check on them, but it doesn't rely on me. I don't need to be here if I don't want to be here. The other key person is our guest relations team. So from a day-to-day basis, now we have 24 listings. On a day-to-day basis, we might have 10 check-ins and 10 checkouts, and my wife and I aren't involved in any of the day-to-day because we've, again, defined what those check-in and check-out processes look like, what questions can commonly come up, what our response would be in certain situations, and then they were able to take that off our plate. So now they can respond to any inquiries about bookings, they can answer questions as guests have them, they can send check-in and check-out messages, and it's all taken off our plate. So hopefully this has been helpful for you. I have 3 kids, 6 and under, and I always try to remain conscious of this small window that's closing of time that I get to spend with them when they're young, before they grow up and leave the house. And I'm just so grateful that this type of business exists where you can own these properties that kick off the type of cash flow that can support your lifestyle. So we can, we live on a farm, we are able to homeschool our kids, to spend a lot of time with our family, which is part of our vision. If that's part of your vision as well, you can work with me to set up properties very similar to this. I have a step-by-step process for that. Like I said at the beginning, you can set up a call with me at livingoffrentals.com/call, and we can talk through your goals and see if it's a good fit. Thanks again for checking out my video. God bless, and I'll see you in the next video.